l'adhésion de la Macédoine du Nord. Tout le monde a également témoigné de la raison fondamentale de la réussite de notre alliance, à savoir la solidarité et la défense de nos valeurs de liberté et de démocratie. L'idée de base de un pour tous, tous pour un, entérinée dans l'article 5 du traité de l'Atlantique Nord, nous aiderons mutuellement pour nous défendre. C'est la raison pour laquelle l'OTAN fonctionne et a eu tant de réussite. Le Royaume-Uni a longtemps souligné qu'on ne pouvait pas être dans la complaisance, on ne pouvait même pas prendre pour acquis ce statut. Il faut maintenir nos dépenses en matière de dépenses collectives et nous avons ainsi souligné que 2% du PIB étaient les dépenses minimales pour tout membre de l'OTAN. Nous avons eu des réussites dans cette campagne. Vous savez ce qui s'est passé depuis le sommet du Pays de Galles en 2014, avec beaucoup d'augmentation en dépenses de défense chez nos amis européens de 130 milliards.
2024, and at this meeting here today, country after country pledged or gave an account of how they were going to meet the pledge of 2%. I was able to sketch out some of the ways in which the UK leads in, for instance, the European contribution to the Nato Readiness initiative, and we are contributing 1 armed brigade, 2 squadrons of fast jets, 6 major warships, including the 2 aircraft carriers, and several other delegations, several other nations also emphasized that they were going to step up their contributions to the Readiness Initiative, amongst other things. And there was a mood of very great solidarity and determination and a willingness to push NATO forward, not just for the next few years, but for the next 70 years, a real belief in the long-standing value of this alliance. We also had good discussions on Russia, how we should respond collectively to Russia, the need to beware of Russia, but also the need to engage. We discussed cyber, the challenges of what's going on in cyberspace, the asymmetric warfare and threats that we collectively face, the need for us to engage together in looking at the challenges from space and working together to develop a policy on space. We also agreed that we would, having heard a really terrible account of the earthquake in Tirana in Albania from Edi Rama, we also agreed that we would act collectively to help the people of Tirana and Durrës to get back on their feet. And that was the essence of a discussion that was, I think, extremely practical and extremely harmonious. If there are any questions, I'd be very happy to take them, but I have a list of people I will come to first. I don't know why these have been nominated. I will try and take as many as I can. But John Pienaar of the BBC first.
Prime Minister, the President of the United States has spoken of his admiration for you. Do you believe that as a leader and as a man that Donald Trump is good for the West and good for Britain? And if so, why?
Well, I certainly think, John, that the United States is the guarantor of, has a massive contributor to NATO, has been for 70 years a pillar of stability for our collective security. And you know, if you want evidence of the willingness of the United States to stand shoulder to shoulder with us, I would point you back to what happened in the case of the poisonings in Salisbury, when, of course, you may remember that country after country stepped forward to expel Russian diplomats in solidarity, Russian spies in solidarity with the UK. And America, the United States, actually expelled 60. And that was a fantastic testament, I think, to the transatlantic alliance. And I draw an unhappy contrast with the posture taken by the leader of the opposition, who I seem to recollect decided that what we were best advised to do was to comply with the wishes of Moscow and send them samples for checking independently in Moscow. America stood shoulder to shoulder with us then, has done for decades, and is an invaluable ally and continues to be so.
What have got Mr. Trump himself
Well, let's be clear. This was under the current U.S. administration, and they were shoulder to shoulder with us and could not have been more supportive. Debbie Haynes of Sky News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You've been pictured in this Buckingham Palace reception with Prime Minister Trudeau and others, apparently having a joke, maybe at Mr. Trump's expense. Do you not take President Trump seriously?
No, that's complete nonsense, and I don't know where that's come from. Tom Newton-Dunn of The Sun.
Thank you, Prime Minister. 9 NATO countries are now meeting the 2% target. 11, though, still have absolutely no plans to meet it. Are you disappointed, and what did you say to those 11 countries who still have no intent of hitting the target? And may I also ask, President Trump has just said that everybody he's spoken to so far here will not go forward with Huawei building their 5G networks. He spoke to you about it in number 10 last night in your very small bilat. Is that what you told him, or you decided not to go ahead with Huawei?
Well, on the other countries that are not meeting their 2%, actually there's a large measure of determination to do it. And as I say, delegation after delegation, leader after leader said that they did want to reach the 2% target by 2024. So we're seeing real progress being made. As I say, those pledges now for another $400 billion by EU countries by 2024. And on Huawei and 5G, I don't want this country to be unnecessarily hostile to investment from overseas. On the other hand, we cannot prejudice our vital national security interests, nor can we prejudice our ability to cooperate with other Five Eyes security partners, and that will be the key criterion that informs our decision about Huawei. And Larissa Brown of the Mail. Where is Larissa Brown?
Thank you, yes. Larissa from the Mail. Sorry. Can I just get clarification on Debbie's question? Are you saying that you weren't discussing Donald Trump last night? And also, has the issue of foreign fighters come up? What are you going to do? Are you going to bring back the Brits from Syria? Thank you.
I really don't. On Debbie's question and your question, I really don't know what is being referred to there, but I can tell you that on foreign fighters and bringing back foreign fighters from Syria, it is, of course, our view that if people go to fight in Syria, they are putting themselves beyond UK law. They're breaking UK law, and they abdicate their rights to citizenship of this country, and we've made that very clear. Gordon Rayner from the Telegraph.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Are you concerned about the way in which the US-UK trade talk minutes found their way onto the internet? Have you asked the Cabinet Office to investigate? And if not, do you think they should be?
Well, thanks, Gordon. As I understand it, that stuff had been online for months, and I'm not. The answer is no. Harriet Line from PA.
Prime Minister, did you discuss with Donald Trump your plans to push ahead with the digital services tax? And if so, what did he say?
My view about the digital services tax is, or my view about that issue broadly, is that we do need to be looking at the question of the vast revenues of big digital companies. They are not paying much tax in proportion to the huge sales that they make in this country, and we need to address that. And that's something that obviously is being raised with our friends in the US. Yes.
Mr. Prime Minister, it's Aynur Tatusol from Turkish media.
Hello there.
Hi. You had many issues with our president, Mr. Erdogan. So how was your meeting with him? Could you please tell us a little bit how was all issues solved or talked between you and him?
Well, we had a very good discussion with Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel and President Erdogan, and we discussed the great complexities of the situation in northern Syria, and clearly we recognise the huge pressures that Turkey faces, the 4 million refugees that Turkey is accommodating, the terrorist threat from the PKK that must be acknowledged, the very real threat that Turkey faces. And I think what we were all trying to do was to understand Turkey's plans for that stretch of northern Syria, what they want to do, how they see the future there, and the way forward. And I think what we want to do is to avoid any misunderstandings between allies within NATO about Turkey's intentions and about how that situation will develop. So what we've agreed is that we will continue that forum and continue to have those talks. And I think, by the way, it's an illustration that E3 plus Turkey format is a good illustration of the way in which the UK will continue to play a cardinal role in discussions material to our interests around the European region once we get Brexit done. And our forest of hands going up. Okay, let's try and answer these questions quickly. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, this is Harun Najafizadeh from Iran International.
Hello, sir.
TV. Thank you, sir. The situation in Iran is tense. A popular demonstration was cracked down, and according to Amnesty International, over 200 people were killed. Have you discussed the situation in Iran, whether inside Iran with your counterparts, or generally the Iranian role in the region?
Well, of course, it didn't come up much today, I can tell you that much, in fact I don't think at all. But my own feeling is that this is not just about fuel prices, this is a sign of real popular dissatisfaction with the regime, and frankly I am by no means surprised, and I think that, as so often, Iranian disruption in the region is a distraction from the failings of the Iranian regime. Yes, sir, front row.
James Hurst from BFBS Forces News. You've committed a significant chunk of Britain's military power to the NATO Readiness Initiative. The squadrons are about a third of our fighter jets, a significant chunk of our surface fleet, and all this at a time when, in terms of men and women, the forces are significantly below strength on manpower. So are the forces going to be stretched too thin, or is this simply a rebranding of contributions we're already making?
Right. Well, yeah. Look, it's very obviously we're going to keep our forces up to strength and more. We're putting a 2.6% increase in defence spending. We are putting 2.2 billion more into our defence budgets. The UK, as you know, exceeds the 2% target. As for the Readiness Initiative, yes, those forces will be deployed as part of that initiative, but of course they'll also be capable of other deployments as well. They won't be exclusively for that purpose, obviously not. Yes, sir.
Prime Minister.
Yes.
Saudi from Phoenix TV, Hong Kong. Actually, just still want to ask something about China, because China is one of the agenda for this year's summit.
Yes.
Actually, after the briefing from the Mr. Secretary General, can we understand that China in the future has to be the strategic partner or strategic enemy for the NATO?
Well,
what do you think of that?
I certainly don't think that the second thing, there was no support for that idea. I think what people felt was that it was right that we should build a strategic partnership with China, but that we should be aware also of the challenges that China presents, and particularly when it comes to areas of high technology. I think that would be a fairer characterization of the discussion. Yes.
Hi, Mr. Johnson. Emilio from Politico. Just to clarify on foreign fighters, President Trump has obviously said that we should take more of them back. He's suggested something about dumping them on our shores even. Are you saying that, no, we won't do that, we don't agree that they should be tried here? Or are you saying, yes, we will take some?
Well, Amelia, as you know, one of the difficulties we have in taking these people back is that our legal systems make it very, very difficult for us to secure convictions. And I go back to what I said earlier. If people go out to break the law, to sort of fight in terrorist organisations, then they really have to take the consequences. Yes, second row.
Prime Minister, Latika Burke, Sydney Morning Herald. Back on railway, when did you decide that the Five Eyes was the most important criteria? And if that's the case, why has your government been incapable of making that decision before you went into Purdah?
Well, we're going to make a decision, and we're going to make it based on, as I say, on the paramount importance of protecting our critical national infrastructure and also protecting our Five Eyes relationships. And I don't think it had anything to do with the timing of the election. Yes, front row, second row.
Sarah Glubb from Arab News. Just a follow-up question on Turkey. Did the issue of the Turkey's purchase of the S-400 Russian anti-defense missile system come up in the meeting, and what's the UK's position on this?
It didn't come up formally within the meeting. I can tell you that. But normally speaking, there's a convention in the NATO alliance that we purchase defence equipment from other members of the NATO alliance, as everybody knows. Paul War.
Prime Minister, the President said yesterday that he doesn't know Prince Andrew, yet there's plenty of evidence that actually Prince Andrew hosted him earlier this year and that they played golf together. Do you think President Trump is an amnesiac or a serial liar?
Look, frankly, Paul, I think that's one of those questions that comes under the general category of a good effort to drag in something that I think is totally extraneous to our dealings here today. This is about strengthening the NATO alliance. We've had a very successful meeting, a very successful meeting of NATO leaders on the 70th anniversary of NATO, and none of those subjects, I can tell you with absolute confidence, none of those subjects was mentioned in any of the sessions, nor to the best of my knowledge in any of the bilateral meetings that have taken place. Yes.
Thank you. Ben Kentish, The Independent. Prime Minister, have you made crystal clear to President Trump that neither the NHS nor pharmaceuticals should even be part of discussions, should even be on the table?
I think...
and if so, do you accept that this time next year we could be about to fully leave the EU without a trade deal in place with either the European Union or the United States?
I think that everybody by now has rumbled all this for the nonsense that it is, and I think I might just wind up this press conference now, because I think we're starting to scrape the barrel. And I think with 8 days to go until this election, we've got a very, very clear choice before us in this country, and distinguished representatives of the international media will have to forgive me for making this point, but it is relevant to our concerns. We have a very, very clear choice before this country. We have a deal that will enable us in the Conservative Party, as a Conservative government, to get Brexit done by the end of January. And that will allow us to get on and do all the fantastic things we wanted to do for our country, to invest massively in the NHS, with the biggest investment in the NHS in modern memory, to uplift funding for every school, every primary, every secondary school in the country, to invest in our police, the biggest infrastructure investment for a century. We want to go ahead with. There is a fantastic future ahead of us if we can get Brexit done and move forward. And the choice in the next 8 days is either doing that, getting Brexit done, moving forward, taking this country to the future that we can achieve together, or going through the Groundhog Day of more paralysis and chaos in Parliament next year with a Corbyn-Sturgeon coalition. A Corbyn-Sturgeon coalition which would mean 2 more referendums, one on Scotland and another one on the EU, which would keep our country back and prevent us from going forward. That is the choice. And by the way, I might go further and say that there is a choice between those who want to strengthen NATO and those in the Labour opposition who actually want to destroy NATO, this alliance that has kept us safe. I want to strengthen MI5. that keeps us safe. Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party want to install a Home Secretary who wants to disband MI5. I want longer sentences for violent criminals and to make sure that terrorists serve their full term. Mr. Corbyn doesn't agree with that. We have got in this government a clear plan to get Brexit done and move forwards and get a parliament working for the people of this country. And as far as I can see, as I say, the only plan that Jeremy Corbyn has, apart from destroying NATO, is to have 2 more referendums that would retard this country's ability to develop, keep our economy in suspense and keep our politics in total disarray. So that's and have another pointless hung parliament. And I could not leave you, my friends, without getting that point across. But I thank you all very much nonetheless for coming to this NATO summit. And I look forward to seeing at least some of you back out on the campaign trail. Thank you all very much. Thank you.